Yeah.
So let's dive a little bit into the whiteboard behind you, which is currently blank.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could be filled with your research. So fluid mechanics, I said fluid dynamics because it just rolled off the tongue, but fluid mechanics. So give us a little
Fluid
overview.
dynamics too,
What
yeah.
are you actually doing? What are you researching?
Yeah, so we study fundamental just fluid mechanics for fluid dynamics problems. It's a wide range of applications right now. I mean, so like the primary one that I'm working on right now is more related to like buoyancy driven flows. And so, which I think most people intuitively get, like say you have a smokestack and there's hot gases coming out. Well, that's a buoyant jet because the gases are hot. Hot gases are lighter than the surrounding fluid.
Mhm.
Buoyancy drives upwards. Um, and so that's one kind of like, application. Um, there's heat treatment processes that have like a high temperature, like burner that you may like heat treat some kind of film. There's also wildfires, which my research group is a big part of trying to work and simulate those flows. Um, yeah, and so that's one of the primary things that we're working on right now.
So kind of like I talked with Chris, like what is it? Are you just I always have like kind of a tough time with this. Are you researching to research, or do you see like where you can start to apply what you're doing to, actual fields?
Yeah, no, so you can definitely see the application. Whether or not like you see the application, like tomorrow someone picks up your research and utilizes it in their real scale flow, not really, but like you can see where it becomes applicable in the future. And my group currently right now, we work on adaptive mesh refinement, which is basically a technique to um, help simulate more realistic flows in a like more realistic flow that isn't quite entirely just for academic purposes, if that makes sense. Um,
Okay,
yeah. So
so like I want to dive deeper into like what you're doing, but
yeah.
like how do I get in there? Um, so you have to excuse me for forgetting like the whole the PhD like I'll say academic track.
Yeah.
Um, to work on your dissertation, are you already started on that? Do you have like are you doing like the group research beforehand? Like where are you in your process?
Yeah, so I passed my subject preliminary exam, and so I still need to pass my preliminary research exam. And so that preliminary research exam, usually you want to have done some research, but you're mostly showing that you're qualified to do research, and you've started to kind of poke away and make good progress, and you are doing good things, but you're not necessarily doing what you want for your thesis per se. And so I'm only just finishing my second year right now. Now after I pass that, hopefully pass that research prelim, then we could then finish up some of the current work that's going on, and then my advisor and I would sit down and talk about a more just real focus that we want to nail down over the next 2 years that is interesting and impactful for the community.
And any inkling so far, like what direction you're going? Like, are you like, oh yeah, I really want to do this, or you have just no idea?
Oh no, I we definitely have an idea. It's just these things kind of take a while
Hmm.
to mull over. We know more or less where things are going to go. What the exact direction, not entirely sure. But we have a sense of where we want to go with the current research. Like things seem to be progressing well, and hopefully we can keep on progressing and make an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the big question, and this is what we ask all 5-year olds, and I think you're still at that point. I mean, you're already a pro triathlete, so and I'm going to give that to you whether you make a living from it or not. But at least in my book, for what that's worth.
I'll take it.
Um, so, I mean, what do you want to be when you grow up?
It's, I mean, it's definitely a hard question. I I think as of right now, I think the being a professional triathlete and trying to make it in the sport becomes less and less appealing every day.
Hmm.
Not that I don't love it. I mean that's the reason that I do it. I love competing and just the people that I've met um, through the process is just has been really great, and I don't ever want to lose that. Um, but I also see not every case, but a lot of cases, it can be hard to transition from trying to just make it as a professional triathlete to transitioning to more of something that you want to do for the rest of your life. Because
Hmm.
most of us, triathlon, it's not, you're not going to make it the full time of your life just competing.
Hmm.
Um, so I think being just a full-time professional triathlete and that would be the only thing that I did just doesn't seem all that appealing. I really do enjoy doing research. That's just one of the things that I enjoy doing, and it seems that like I could, pursue that for the rest of my life, and that seems way more interesting. So that would probably be more or less where I see myself ending up being, but I don't ever see myself giving up in like just being done doing triathlon or doing sport.
Is there an ability, like, is there an option for you to find, I'll say, like a private research position, or are you going to be like have to teach classes to also do research in like an academic setting?
Yeah, you don't have to. So especially after you get a PhD, a lot of people get postdoctoral positions, which is basically a fancy way of saying just do research. Um,
Hmm.
and whether or not that's still within the academic community, so a lot of times a professor will hire a postdoc to help do research, help push along research. And that's one option. But a lot of times, also the industries and national laboratories require postdoc positions as well. So
Okay.
definitely, it's there's plenty of positions and things to do after you get your degree.
So I think I can remember this phrase right. I think often when I was doing undergrad, the phrase "publish or perish" came around a lot.
Yeah,
Do you experience that, or like, how true would that be to you, or does that hit home at all?
I see it a lot, and people are constantly worried about that. But as long as you are making good progress with your research, I think things kind of fall out for themselves. Um, I don't think that as a graduate student, it's really perish necessarily. Like you should, be working towards making a publication, making impact on the community. But
Hmm.
like I don't, and if you were going to graduate with your PhD, you're likely going to have one, two, maybe even a couple more than that research papers that you published. Um, but like, it also depends on what you're doing. Like, I know people that had to design their like an entire experimental facility, and maybe they didn't necessarily write like three or four papers, but they laid the foundation for a lot of work to come, which is impactful for itself. Um,
Hmm.
I think mostly it happens, you see it more at like the professor level. Like if you're not publishing on a regular basis, I mean, you know, people look at that kind of oddly, like you should be making progress, for,
Hmm.
like helping the community and stuff. So,
One thing that you keep mentioning, and I think of almost academia sometimes as like people in an ivory tower working on their own problems, but you can, I don't know how many times you mentioned, four, five, six times. You keep mentioning like having an impact on the community. So what? Well, I mean, what does that actually look like?
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for a number of reasons. Like it depends on what you're doing. I think that making an impact, like it can come from like a various amounts of standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, you could have like a very, very direct impact. So there's a research group here at CU that is doing, methane detection.
Mm-hmm.
So they can detect methane leaks from far away distances, and that way you don't have to be invasive into like go into and like, figure out if methane is actually there or not. You can detect it with a laser. So that has an obvious immediate impact
Mm-hmm.
on like the community, right? Because once you develop that tool, I mean, yeah, you might not produce like a ton of papers from it necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's like one way you might see it. Another is like developing, a computational tool, which is mostly the work that we do. And if once you develop that tool, then you can utilize it to write a whole bunch of papers, and you can just study the heck out of everything. And like, but developing that tool for the community to use for their problems, that you can see that as like an impact on the community as well.
Okay. I mean, is that like one of the things I talk about, like when I coach athletes, but it really applies to everything. I refer to it as like a bag of whys. Like you have a series of things that drive you, like your reason to compete. Maybe um, you want to prove somebody wrong, or you have aspirations of being the best, or things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about like your what I would refer to as your bag of whys for like research. I mean, is there something that like inspires you to move forward with research? Like I said, it just seems like that impact seems it's like so crucial to like what's coming like out of your brain. So I'm trying to figure out if there's something behind that. If um, yeah, so it's kind of something kind of inspired that idea for you.
I, I just think it's fun. I mean,
Okay.
it's really cool seeing like, you do research to answer a question, and like, and it's typically, hopefully, a question that the community has not already answered. And that's cool, right? Like
Hmm.
you can show that you did research and you were able to answer this question. Um, how definitive that answer is, well, I mean, that's always up to the scientific community, but yeah, I just think that that is really interesting, at least to me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll ask you the same thing I ask everybody, and if I don't know whether you watched Chris' episode or not, but I ask everyone if they can only choose one thing to eat for recovery for the rest of your life, what do you choose?
I think most of the people that know me would probably know the answer to this, but most definitely pizza. I could eat that for all the meals for the rest of my life with no regrets.
See, now I have to give you a hard time because how do you eat pizza? Like, I feel like there's this idea about, and I'm not like shaming you, but just there's this idea about
There's no
I mean,
shaming.
you're a professional athlete, like how can you eat pizza for recovery? Why aren't you eating a salad? Like, why is pizza your jam?
I, it's hard to say. I just love pizza. I mean, I it's not like I like dip my pizza in grease and eat it for every meal. Like, there's usually I like whenever I make them, there's vegetables on it of sorts of any variety. There's some sort of meat and cheese, and it seems like overall it's not like terrible for you. At
Mm-hmm.
least I don't think it is. I'm still alive, so
Yeah, as our slow and inexorable march towards death, we're like, oh, I'll just eat some pizza in the meantime. It'll help me feel better.
yeah, exactly.
That took a dark turn there. I'm sorry about that. Mike, if people want to follow you in your somewhat infrequent postings, where can they find you?
Um, Instagram or Facebook are usually the best ways. Definitely not Twitter.
Not Twitter. What's your handle? What's your website?
It's at Milk Me Mike for my Instagram, and I think my website is Mike Meehan Racing at WordPress.
I'll double check that and it'll be on the screen.
Yeah.
Before we go, I do have to ask you what's the deal with the Instagram handle?
It's a long story. Yeah.
Too long to share for now. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.